Hello everyone, welcome to our Angular from Scratch series. So in the last video, we have discussed about the component communication in Angular. Now in this video, we will be learning about Angular services. So what is an Angular service? Angular service is a class in Angular that is annotated with @injectable that contains logic not directly related to the view. Okay, so what is injectable? Injectable means injectable tells Angular that a particular class which is annotated with this decorator marks a class as available to be injected in other component or services. So if I am marking this as injectable, so that means this can be used in any other class in my application. Okay, so I'll explain about this injectable and what all we can use inside it in when we will create the service. Okay, and what all we can put inside this service class? We can do API calls from this point. We can add some business logic here. We can do some data storage or some sharing here. We can add some utility function that can be reused, and we can create component communication that we discussed in our last video, component communication, where we created a shared service inside the service class. So similarly, we can use a service class for different purpose. Now let's move ahead. Why to use services? So services is very useful. With service, you can reuse your logic across your different components. You can communicate between unrelated components which are not in parent-child relationship. It is easier to test your app or your functionality separately if you are using services, and it separate concerns. Okay, so you put the API calling some code, business logic inside the services only, and the component level thing inside the component file and other files. Okay, so that's why we use services. So let's move ahead towards the IDE and let's discuss how we can create an Angular service, and we will create some method inside it, and then we will use it. So I'm inside my my first app. Okay, so let's create our first service. So I'll be creating it inside my service folder. So let's move to that folder first. cd src cd app cd services. Okay, so I'm inside my service folder. Now this command is ng generate that we use, and for component we use c or component complete, but for service we can use s or service. Okay, ng generate service and that service name. So I am creating a user service, so I'll create user service as the name. Okay, it will take some time. Yeah, so it created two files inside my service, user service.ts and then spec.ts, which is the test file. Okay, it is created with component file as well. So now let's discuss about the service default features that Angular provides. So @injectable that we discussed, it tells Angular that this service can be reused. Okay, it can be injected in other Angular component by the Angular dependency injection. So you must be aware about the dependency injection concept. Okay, so dependency injection is where we are not creating any object inside our app using new keyword. Okay, we or by creating any object hard coding. So we are providing Angular the responsibility to managing the life cycle of all these components and services. Okay, so Angular will inject it wherever it is required. So inside it we use provided in root. Okay, so what is root? Root tells that this service only one instance will be used across our complete app. So wherever we will injecting this service, it will use the same reference everywhere. Okay, and it can be of different type as well. we can use any as also. So any tells a new instance is created every time it's injected in lazy loaded module. Okay, and we can also use provided in some module name. Okay, so where I am restricting this service only to a particular module. So we can also use that value, but by default it is recommended to always use the provided in as a root, so that your service is available everywhere. Only one instance is available throughout the application, so for better performance. Okay. Okay, now I have added some basic code inside my service file. So what I have added, I've inside my user service, I am creating one method, get user from JSON file. So basically in the real application, you will be calling some API endpoint, your backend services. But here I'm calling some JSON, which I have provided the URL, and I have put one JSON inside the asset folder for demo purpose. So inside this JSON, I am returning similar response that any API will return. Okay, so in this I am returning ID, name, and email ID. Okay, and once I get it, okay, using this URL, okay, so it will return me as an observable. Okay, and it is returning your user type. So I've defined the user type here, which has this ID of number type, name, and email of string type. Okay, so this function method I'll invoke from my component file. Okay, so let me move to my component file. Okay, let me first inject my user service. Okay, so yeah, let's first use this user file. Sorry, use service. Okay, I'm importing it. Sorry. Okay, now what I will do is, okay, let's get the data when I click, when I do on click. Okay, so on click, what I'm doing is this dot user service dot get user from URL dot, I will be subscribing to it, and then it will return me user data of type user. Okay, and then what is this? No validated matches this on 1 minute. Let's not define type for now. Okay. Okay. Now inside this, what I will do is I will print user details in the console to show you. User. Okay, it's you. Multiple users I'll be getting. Okay. Users from JSON file. And this will be in the JSON format. So I have to stringify it to show you. So it will be JSON dot stringify. There is a method which can convert your JSON to string type. Okay, yeah. So on click, I'll be doing I'll be calling this service method, and when this response is received, I'm printing it to the console. Okay, so everything looks fine. Let me run my app. Okay, so let me launch it. Okay, so we are getting some errors, saying injector error, standalone for app component, HTTP client. Okay, So this error is saying that we have used HTTP client for our API call, but we have not imported it anywhere. Okay, so as you can see, we are using the HTTP client from the common HTTP to call our API or to get our data, but we are not injecting it anywhere. So let me provide it here. Provide HTTP client, and we will import it from Angular common. Let me save it. Let me remove it from here. Okay, yeah, now the application started to work. Okay, so which method we are calling on click? Let me rename it to get user data. Okay, yeah, so on the click of this we'll get the user data. I have nothing in the console for now. Let me click on it. See, yeah, so data users from JSON file. So this is the data I'm getting: ID1, name Aman, email ID, and this complete data that I am getting. So the same data I added inside the user.json. Okay, so that's how we use service in Angular. So now in the next video, we will be learning about the directives in Angular. Thank you.